Hey friends, welcome back to the Big Talk podcast. I'm your host, Tricia Brouk, founder of the Big Talk Academy, award-winning director, producer, and author. And this is episode 617. Today, I'm talking with an amazing alum of the Big Talk Academy, Meena Srinivasan. Meena is a celebrated speaker, accomplished author, and visionary edupreneur. With over 20 years of dedicated service, she consistently champions the fusion of mindfulness, social and emotional learning, and belonging. As the founding executive director of Transformative Educational Leadership, Meena pioneered a groundbreaking fellowship for educational leaders. This unique program places an emphasis on nurturing personal development as a catalyst for driving systemic transformation. In 2022, she was featured as one of Mindful Magazine's 10 powerful women in the mindfulness movement. And with over 2 million views, her recent TEDx on Tenderness is one of the most popular TEDx talks of 2024. And I'm super grateful and excited that we were able to help her accomplish that goal by what we shared with her in the Big Talk Academy. All right, everybody, enjoy this incredible interview. Meena, welcome to the Big Talk podcast. I'm so excited to have you on as a featured guest.
It just warms my heart to be here and be in conversation with you.
Oh my goodness. For those of you who are listening and watching, Meena is an extraordinary speaker, communicator, and you just heard me read her bio. She's also a Big Talk Academy alum, and she's so talented. And I want to start us on a conversation about where this all came from. Share a little bit of your backstory, and you can go back as far as you like and take us to this moment in time, literally today, with us in conversation together.
Yeah, well, I am a firm believer in divine synchronicity. And when you are on purpose, when you are living your life in a way where you're honoring what the universe has intended for you to do in this life, things unfold in miraculous ways beyond anything you could ever conceive. And so, Tricia, I've always been a speaker. I started speaking when I was in elementary school, and I led a direct action campaign to get rid of styrofoam lunch trays from our cafeteria, and was the first Indian American female to be our class president. And so speaking has always been, part of how I showed up in the world, but I never really identified as a speaker. So I was really involved in politics when I was younger. I actually founded the Young Democrats Association in my town. I went off to college. Actually thought that I would pursue a career as a foreign news producer, and spent time working at Reuters in London and Bloomberg in New York. And after I graduated from college, I had a job at the ABC network in New York. But I deferred that for a year, and I was also really interested in the field of education. I mean, for me, it's always been about, even when I spoke when I was younger, it's always been about the message and using my voice to affect change. And um, and so I deferred my job at the ABC network in New York and went off to Brazil. And I had this spiritual experience, and I was teaching at an international school at the time, and I was 22. And one of the books I read was Parker Palmer's The Courage to Teach, where he talks about how we teach who we are. And that really struck me. And I went back to New York. I worked at ABC. But in my heart, I just knew it wasn't my life path. But sometimes you have to know what's not for you. So I have no regrets about not following that career path. And started to walk the path of being an educator. And at the same time was always nurturing my spiritual life and my spiritual practice. And so after graduate school, I went to UC Berkeley for grad school, and I studied education, but I also studied Sanskrit. And I moved to my ancestral homeland of India. And I lived there for 5 years. And that's where I met Thich Nhat Hanh, and very involved in that community. I'm on the board of the Thich Nhat Hanh Foundation. But again, I never identified as a speaker at that point. It was always about um, sharing a message. And, and Thich Nhat Hanh's deepest message is like peace in oneself, peace in the world, right? And so connecting with and cultivating our relationship with our interior life. And so, I got very involved in one of the early pioneers in the mindfulness and education movement and social and emotional learning. I went on to be a public school administrator, moved back to the United States. I managed the systemic implementation of social and emotional learning in the Oakland schools, have written a couple of books. But again, I've been doing higher profile speaking. Like in 2016, I'd shared the same stage as Brene Brown, and I'd speaking to audiences of 3,000, but never really saw myself as a speaker, always saw myself as a thought leader, a change agent, a field expert. And I think for me, where I was when, in my life, when I met, your work and connected with you, and I trust in the divine synchronicity of things. I was in the moment, I was in a moment in my life where I was submitting a proposal for a big conference in my field. And I've done a lot of work around bridge building. I lead an organization called Transformative Educational Leadership, which is really about building a beloved community for educational leaders. And our vision is that schools are our beloved learning communities. And I was working on this proposal around bridge building and belonging. And I was connecting with the spiritual mentor of mine, who's a former Catholic priest. And we're having like a discernment meeting. And I was like, um, I know that this is the proposal that the committee wants, but what the universe is breathing through me I right now, and what's coming up for me is this is really becoming intimate with this concept of tenderness. And right at that moment was when I had found out about Big Talk. Always knew I was going to do a TEDx, but was really waiting for when the universe was going to breathe life into me. And is like, this is the message that's being birthed through you for the world. And so it was like divine timing. And had an opportunity to study with you through the Big Talk. And I think what the Big Talk did for me was it helped me transition more fully into my identity as a speaker. But for me, speaking is really about alleviating suffering, like through my message. Like I am guided by, as I know you are, like the Bodhisattva path. And like we are here to alleviate suffering on this planet. And I know that using my voice and using um, my gifts in that way is how I'm meant to serve in this life. So that's a little bit about kind of me to this moment with you right now.
I'm so excited that you shared all of this with our listeners and with me, Meena. And I did not know that you were an advocate using your voice at the age of 12 or whatever. Was it
8.
8 when you started talking about styrofoam in the kitchen or in the cafeteria? I think that's incredible. How did you come to embody that as a young person?
Ooh, good question. I feel that I'm so blessed for my parents. I'm the child of immigrants, and I think at a young age, my mother cultivated a sense of agency in me. But I come from a long line. My great grandfather was a freedom fighter in the Indian independence movement, and so there's a lineage there. And I do see myself as a lineage holder of nonviolence and of you know using my life to make the world a better place in some way. And so at that young age, I don't know, boldness, craziness, but definitely the love of my family. And I know, with my work in the fields of mindfulness and education and social and emotional learning, so many young people don't have that. And so for me, it's an even more of a motivating factor, just recognizing how important it is for young people to have the conditions we all need to thrive, right? To be loved. Even when I think about my work around, cultivating the beloved community, it's a space where we can all be loved and where we aspire to embody our highest vision of wisdom and compassion in the world. So I'd say my family, my lineage, and I was growing up in the 80s. There's a lot of I mean, there's still, gosh, we see all the vitriol now, right, in American politics and polarization. But back then, there was a lot of invisibility and racism. Like I still remember, gosh, I don't usually talk about this. My mom put me in a beauty pageant when I was 4. Lord knows why she did that. but an early childhood memory of mine is, a girl saying, like, you have brown skin, you're ugly, you shouldn't be here. And I feel like thanks to the love of my parents, I've been able to cultivate this resilience and also um, this capacity to cultivate a sense of belonging within. I think sometimes those of us not part of the dominant culture, we look for confirmation of not belonging in places. And um, and that is true. And there's also the internal work of feeling a sense of belonging within, which is for me, my spiritual practice is so vital to who I am and how I move in the world.
Being able to share the upbringing and how your parents gave you permission to use your voice in that way, while also knowing that you had a calling that was bigger than you. That's a really important acknowledgement, to know that young that you had such a big calling and an influential voice. And what I love about you, and I'll just highlight it for our listeners, is that you live a life of courage while also aligning with such tenderness and love. And you can be fierce and still tender.
Yeah, and I think as women, there's like this like boss bitch archetype, right? That you can't be powerful if you're gentle. And for me, this whole tenderness exploration has been an opportunity for me to explore the matriarch archetype and this other way of being a powerful woman in the world that is deeply compassionate at the same time. And so I think for me, that's the work I'm really excited to do right now in my leadership and my work with women and my work with leaders is um is to really just sit in that space. And when I even think about like my models for leadership, right? When I think about Gandhi and when I think about Thich Nhat Hanh or even my mother, they are deeply powerful, incredibly tender, but because they're so solid within, that solidity within who they are and why they're here, they don't need to power over. They just show up with presence, with love. And that is more powerful than any kind of power over way of being is. And so I'm really grateful to have those models in my life. In my TEDx, I tell the story about how I was facilitating a year-long experience for leaders, and they gave me a card. And when they gave me the card, they were like, one of the things we admired is your gentle, tender leadership. And at first I was like, wait a second, is this a microaggression because I'm an Asian woman? And I was like, wait a second, the leaders I admire most are so tender and so powerful simultaneously.
Yeah, I agree with you completely. And I think that that's something that makes you such a strong leader. And it's something that I also work towards embodying every single day, is showing up in that presence of being that allows for everything to exist. And I think we can go here, and I would like to go here. And I think we can, based on what you shared with me before we started rolling, which was Kamala is running for president for our
My
country.
girl. Yes.
And what I'm experiencing right now when it comes to the misogyny and the racism, saying she's a DEI hire and calling out how she laughs, which is so sexist. I just think that it's fascinating to watch how everybody's fear has come to the surface. And I'd love to know what your thoughts are on that as a leader who embodies tenderness and who shows up in a way that is present.
Yeah, well, I want to also mention that we haven't talked wise tenderness, right?
Thank
And
you.
wise tenderness is um, having the deep wisdom to know what's appropriate when. And so tenderness is not in my sort of how I think about tenderness and the work I'm doing now. And side note, but I'm working with a researcher at Yale, and we're actually doing some research because there isn't yet a conceptual model around what this is, but it's very somatic. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm excited to eventually share the research back with you when we have it. But um, you know, uh, wise tenderness is it comes from a space of recognizing, Thich Nhat Hanh talks about interbeing, right? The sense of our interconnection, the infinite causes and conditions at play. It's like the highest wisdom that we can have. And so for me, what I'm trying to do is, and it's hard, it's not easy. I'm really trying to practice, the principles of nonviolence in this moment, you know, um, how can we show up differently and um, not not act from our own fear that clearly the right is acting from. And so this requires such deep interior spiritual work practice. And in the work that I do with leaders, the beloved community it's rooted in the principles of nonviolence. And nonviolence is a courageous way of living and being in the world. And it requires such deep practice because the easy thing, right, is to act from fear. And so yeah, I mean, we're gonna see, I'm like preparing myself, like we're gonna see the most disgusting racism and misogyny in the next few months, and let us not fall into that trap. Do not fall into that trap. And that's what I keep saying to myself. So having a spiritual practice for me is really important in order to keep aligning to my values. And I want to name that being tender doesn't mean you take shit, And so having the wisdom to know uh, when and how to act in the most skillful way is also very much part of my practice as well.
Beautiful. That's such a wonderful reminder to not get involved, to not let your own fear come in,
Yeah,
to
and to also
practice.
practice mindful consumption too,
Yes.
last night, since we're going there, I was on the affinity call for Asian American women for Kamala, and it was like, Tricia, they're having the white women group tonight. I'm sure you're gonna be on the call. It was like so empowering, so exciting. And I posted on Sunday when the news came. I made a shirt in 2020 that said, "My VP is a powerful woman of color, just like me." And I was like, I'm ready to swap out VP for president, y'all. Let's go. Let's do this. So, it means a lot for me. I mean, just to also say that Kamala's ancestors are from Tamil Nadu, where my
Yeah.
family is from in India. So it's something very personal that to see a woman that is brown, who is going to be, because I do believe in stating the future right now, and I know you do that too. She is
Yes.
going to be, our next leader, but we have to do everything we can. I mean, active hope is a term from Joanna Macy that, like, hope isn't something we have, it's something we do. So we all have to rally, we have to mobilize right now, and we have to hold our ground. And so, yeah, I'm inspired, I'm fired up, I'm excited, and I am not going to get caught up in the swirl of crazy. This is a time to stay solid, to stay grounded, to stay true to our values, and you know, um, to not act from a place of fear, because that's exactly what the right is wanting us to do right now. So, ladies, my brown ladies, let's hold our ground. Let's hold our ground right now.
That's right. Let's hold our ground together collectively. Amazing. Wise tenderness and active hope. Meena, such a pleasure. Are you ready for some fast talk?
I sure am.
All right. What's your favorite book?
Oh, I would say so. The Awakened Brain by Lisa Miller. I don't know if you heard of this book. It is so good, and I've met Lisa Miller, and so basically, it's the neuroscience of natural spirituality, and she's a clinical psychologist, and she launched the Spirituality Mind Body Institute at Teachers College Columbia. It's so good. It's the kind of book I'm like, don't end. This book is so good. So, highly recommend it. Awakened Brain by Lisa Miller.
I have not read it, so I can't wait to get it immediately after
You
this
will
call.
love it from what I know about you.
Cannot wait. Who's your favorite speaker and why?
Thich Nhat Hanh,
Yeah.
like without a doubt, like hearing him speak. One of my colleagues, when shared with me, we were talking, it's like a sound bath of tenderness. It's like so embodied, just his gentle voice. It just, hits me deep. So, and I also say that to say sometimes people have this idea of like a speaker has to be a certain way. And I think for me on my leadership journey too, it's been honoring who I am and
Mm,
how I am meant to show up in the world.
beautiful.
So you
I
can have
had
a gentle voice and you could still be a powerful effing speaker, right?
so true. I had the pleasure of seeing Thich Nhat Hanh speak in New York at the Beacon, and
Oh,
it
maybe we
was,
were there at the same time.
yeah, I have a feeling we probably were. It was
Yeah.
really special, really, really special. How do you memorize for our speakers who are
Okay.
listening?
So this is so funny because like, I've been doing this since middle school when I ran for student council. So I have a process where I will write it out. I mean, it's a very embodied process, but I will print out my talk. I create index cards where I like I cut out the typed words and I put it there. And I go through a whole process of like, and it's crazy when I think back because I'm remembering a speech I gave in seventh grade that I was doing this intuitively. And I would underline and make my own notation around intonations and what to emphasize. And like, I was just doing this because, right, this is, I guess, what I'm meant to do with my
Yeah,
life.
all
And then,
instinctual.
yeah, and then it's a matter of like, breathing it into you with life. So when you're up there, you're actually not about memorizing what you said, but you're like, I'm here to communicate. I'm here to like share my message, share my story. And I think with my TEDx and with other talks I do, it really is like it's not about giving a talk. It's about sharing the message the universe has meant to share with the world through me. And in doing that, it's like I'm connecting with the people in the audience. Like I see you. We're here together. So it's a very embodied experience.
Beautiful, beautiful. And what do you like to do the day before you speak in preparation?
Yeah, well, exercise is a exercise, well-being, meditating. In terms of my routine, for me, definitely having some kind of physical movement is really important. However, that may be. I mean, when you're traveling, you don't have, you got work with what you have. Um, yeah, and I'm at a place in my life with my speaking, like I don't get nervous anymore like I used to. Like I used to, and I still have I love heart math and I have my little like, biofeedback machine. And I remember 10 years ago, like before I'd go on stage, I'd be like, trying to get the light to go green. But good stress, EUSTREES, that's good stuff there. So the more I can lean into uh like I'm here to share what the universe is for me to share. And uh it it there's a lot more ease in the engagement. But like I said, I was also a teacher before. I've been speaking for a long time. So
Yeah,
but it's fun for me when I am on stage. Like I just know in my like I feel so aligned with purpose in that
yeah,
moment.
beautiful. Well, I love that you have a process and it is in alignment with the transmission.
Yeah, total transmission. That's the word I was looking for. Thank you.
Perfect. You're welcome. Any podcast you're currently obsessed with or listening to?
Oh, of course, The Way Out is in. And if you want a good one on nonviolence, there was recently one with one of my teachers, Shantam Seth and Christina Figueres, who, was one of the main negotiators of the Paris climate talks. They're both students of Thich Nhat Hanh.
Yep.
And it was called Ancient Wisdom for Modern Times. And it's all about nonviolence. It was so good. So that whole podcast in general is just phenomenal. And, but that episode, if you need some a soothing balm in this moment that we're in politically, globally, ancient wisdom for modern times.
It is incredible. And I love Brother Fapu so much.
Oh
And Joe
yes.
Confino. Oh, that
Yeah, I
whole,
just was with Joe here in San Diego because I moved to Southern California to be near one of Thai's monasteries, and we just had a
oh,
board retreat a couple months ago. So I finally I was like, this everyone probably feels like they know you really well because of the podcast.
yeah.
But
Oh,
yeah,
that's
it's a
amazing.
beautiful pot, and the production is done. It's just done. It's done in a very mindful way. Um,
It, it's,
so yeah.
it's Incredible. Well, it's been such a pleasure to have you on the show. Thank you so much for being here, Meena. Where can
Oh,
our
thank you
listeners
for the
get?
opportunity. And, thank you to you. I believe in the divine timing for everything because um, you helped me realize I've always been a speaker. I just wasn't leaning into that identity. But again, as speaker, that's how I'm here to alleviate suffering through that medium. So thank you for that.
You are so welcome. How can our listeners get in touch with you?
Yeah, well, you can go to my website, meenasrinivasan.com. I actually have a free tenderness guide that goes along with the TEDx. So if you go to my site, you could see that there's a lot of guided meditations and free resources. So meenasrinivasan.com. I'm on social, but I'm not LinkedIn is probably where I'm more active. And then transformative educational leadership. If you're an educational leader or educator out there listening, check us out because I think we're doing some just powerful, groundbreaking work around building beloved community. So yeah, teleadership.org and meenasrinivasan.com.
Amazing. You are such an influential voice, Meena. I appreciate you.
Thank you. Thank you, Tricia.
You're welcome. Thank you all for listening and for tuning in with us today. If you're watching on YouTube, be sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so that you get access to our latest videos. Spending time with us means so much. It is our goal and hope to help amplify and elevate your voices. So be sure to share this podcast with people that you feel it will resonate with. And we will put all of the show notes links so that you can get access to all of these incredible offerings that Meena has shared with us. Thank you, everybody. And remember, your voice matters. Big love.